So we're going to take a look at some things tonight that'll really be interesting, because what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to initiate speed healing. Now, what we're going to share is actually very interesting because it's something that most people don't want to do. Do you believe me? We want to get well, but we don't want to do what it takes to get well. So let's just take a look here. Initiating true speed healing. And what we're going to look at is exercise. And we're going to view it in a way that maybe you've never thought of exercise before. So bear with me, and I hope this is one of the most interesting things you've ever heard about exercise. Do you have a regular exercise program?
Working. Yeah.
Yeah.
We work in a restaurant, so we walk around the restaurant. But other than that, no.
Unfortunately not.
Poor diet and inadequate exercise accounted for 582,000 deaths. 582,000. That's the top of the line. On the next one is tobacco. That only accounted for 460-some thousand deaths. Alcohol, 107,000. But take a look again at that top figure. What does it say? 582,000 deaths. Almost more than all of them combined. So we can see that what we're doing is we are not living in a way that will produce health. Perfect health depends upon perfect circulation. The entire system depends upon the healthy action of the respiratory organs. If we would have health, we must live for it. And that's from Healthful Living, page 30. Red blood cells make up almost 45% of the blood volume. Their primary function is to carry oxygen from the lungs to every cell in the body. Now you may ask yourself, why am I talking about red blood cells when we're talking about exercise? Well, without the red blood cells being healthy and working well, all your exercise is almost worthless. Okay? This is why the two are correlated together. They work synergistically, exercise and healthy blood, and you're going to see exactly why. How many drops of blood do you think we could fit on the head of one of these pins? Does anybody have any guesses? We'll start going. Let's say 100? Do I hear 1,000? Do I hear 2,000? You don't believe that, do you? We're talking red blood cells here. Do I hear maybe 4,000, 3,000? It's actually between 4,000 and 5,000 red blood cells can fit on the head of a pin. Now that's a lot of red blood cells. Now I want you to picture with me, most of the blood vessels in your brain, in your lungs, in your liver and pancreas, and your kidneys, the blood vessels are so small that the red blood cells can only fit through them single file. That's how small they are. So if you have blood that is sticking together due to a fatty diet, you've got a brain that cannot be well fed. You've got kidneys that won't function properly, lungs that cannot get enough air or exchange the carbon dioxide from our breathing. So you can see that we need to really concentrate on what we're going to do with our blood in order to make exercise very beneficial. Every cell of your body requires nutrition, oxygen, and the removal of waste in order to thrive and survive. Hardening of the arteries reduces oxygen and nutrient concentrations to every cell of the body, including the brain. Memory, learning, and all mental cognitive skills are dependent upon a steady stream of oxygen and nutrition. Now, did you catch that? A steady stream. That is very important. Not intermittent, not every now and then, but a steady stream. Now, I do a lot of blood work, and these are red blood cells. I took this photograph from my microscope. I have a special apparatus on my microscope. I can photograph all the blood work that I do. And I catalog all the blood work I do, and I compare people's blood. Some people have certain diseases. I can look at the blood and I can see where there's stresses in the body and in the whole system, stresses in the liver. This blood that you're looking at is the blood of a very healthy individual. Notice how the red blood cells are all nicely separated. You notice how they're concave. dipping down in the middle, in other words. The little black dot you see on that screen right up in here, that is just a dot on the camera lens up in here also. But that's the blood plasma. It's very, very clear and clean and strong. And these red blood cells are approximately 6 to 8 microns in size. So they're the right size to fit through the blood vessels, not too large, not too small. Perfectly healthy individual. Now I'm going to show you what the average blood looks like of the average person who comes into my office. And when a person comes into my office, they look at their own blood with me. Isn't that interesting? So I put it under the microscope and they look at it and go, wow, that's my blood? Yes, that's your blood. Some of them have never seen a white blood cell, but I'll show them a white blood cell in action, fighting an invader in the system. It's absolutely incredible. And this causes people to go, wow, I've got to do something different. Look what my blood looks like compared to the healthy blood. I'll show you what I mean. You see these cells? This is what the average person's blood looks like. All these cells are sticking together. Some of them are separate, but look at this. They're stacked like the Michelin Man over here. And all these black lines that you see through here, remember on the previous blood sample, there was no black lines. Look at that. Because there was no stress in the liver. But on this one, there's lots of stresses in the liver throughout. And as I look at this, I'll say to the person, do you ever have pain in your side or have problems digesting your food? And they usually go, yeah, I do. I say, well, it's no wonder. Your liver is very stressed, and so is your pancreas. In fact, when I look at blood like this, I see that the liver is unable to produce enough bile to digest the fats properly in the body. And thus, the red blood cells are sticking together. Now, remember what I shared with you about the red blood cells having to be separate to get into every area of the body. In a person whose blood looks like this, the red blood cells are not separated enough to supply the brain, the lungs, the liver, the pancreas, and the kidneys with proper amounts of red blood cells because they can't fit through single file, they're blocked. Sometimes this can produce a hematoma. It can produce a blockage in an artery, just building up and building up and building up. And what you're going to see here is, I want you to take note of this. Right up in here, this little black line you see right there, can anyone tell me what that is? That's really small. But you know what it is? It's a parasite. That's a parasite in the blood. Now this parasite only feeds on cells that are not healthy. That parasite won't go in and feed on a healthy cell. And this parasite usually comes from red blood cells that are not healthy. They start to die, and then the worm inside the cell comes alive and starts to eat the red blood cell. But it won't feed on healthy cells. So now I'm going to show you a rapid succession of pictures that I took with my camera showing that this parasite here is going to enter into this red blood cell. You want to see that? Take a look. Follow that screen. There he is, going right inside the cell to have a meal. Okay, so there's a good magnification on there. You can see that. There are 3 tissues of the body which cannot tolerate a loss of circulation: the heart, the legs, and the brain. Circulation loss to the brain results in loss of memory. A 50 to 70% reduction in circulation might be tolerated by some tissues, but the heart, brain, and leg muscles will usually not tolerate this amount of blood reduction without causing severe symptoms. Thus, on exertion, the heart will ache, and the brain refuses to remember, and the legs develop cramps. Anybody had that happen? They'll say, I can't exercise because my legs hurt. It's almost like a catch-22 situation. We had one woman that came to one of our cleanse programs when we had a little center in Alberta. And she was really quite well overweight. And she'd sit in a chair and she'd say, I can't exercise because my legs hurt. Now, I knew what was going on in her system. So lovingly and carefully, I said to her, that's too bad. Get out and exercise anyway. And so what she did was I'd take her outside, set up a chair on the sidewalk, and she'd sit in the chair and she'd get up and she'd walk maybe 5 or 6 steps, and she'd go, oh, my legs hurt. So I'd bring the chair and set it down where she was, and she'd sit down in the chair and take a rest. And then I'd get her up, she'd walk another 5 or 6 steps, and I'd set the chair down, she'd sit down. We did this for, a good half hour, 45 minutes. The next day, went out, guess what? She made it to 20 steps the next day. And the day after that, she made it to, probably 50 or 60 steps. In less than 10 days, she was out walking in front of every other cleanse guest that had come on the program. She was just huffing and strutting her stuff all the way down the road. And she says, I feel fantastic. She was up and down the stairs, and guess what disappeared? All the aches in her legs disappeared. The blood flow had been restored, and by the way, on the cleanse program, she was on a very special diet, one that was the opposite of what she had been eating before she came to the cleanse program. And she said, these foods will kill me. I said, no, they won't. She says, I feel terrible. We said, that's because your body's starting to clean things out. But by the end of the cleanse, she was feeling very good. And when she went home, she had some friends, and they said, she gave them a call, told them what she was doing. She says, do you guys want to go for a walk? And they said, excuse me? Go for a walk? She goes, oh, yeah, let's go for a walk. So she'd take them for a walk, and she was walking for 2 hours, telling them everything she had learned. Isn't that wonderful? So you see, you have to make yourself do it. If anyone in this audience tonight has a problem, has aches and pains in their legs, or their heart starts to ache, go anyway. Start walking a little bit, even if it's only 5 or 6 steps, do that. And you will have marvelous results, especially if you've got healthy blood. Now, the joint surfaces of our body, our bones, have a very limited blood supply. And for the most part, they gain nourishment and energy by absorbing fluid. This simply means that a cartilage takes up fluid in much the same way that a sponge takes up water when squeezed and released. Have you ever heard the expression, if you don't use it, you'll lose it? Okay? The thing is, when you start moving your joints, the cartilage starts to squeeze out fluid and absorb fluid as it's moved against the joint. So walking with your arms moving, your legs moving well, your body turning, breathing deeply, expanding the rib cage, causes blood flow to be sent to these particular places, and the cartilage and all these organs with their tissues and all the bones and so on and so forth, they receive a good amount of blood supply. That's why you need to move. But if you sit still, when you go to move, you won't be able to. It'll hurt. So, I can't move. It's almost like a catch-22 situation. Now, consequently, it is during the movement of a joint that cartilage gains its nutritive requirements. People who are active do very well. Do you know more people rust out than wear out? Isn't that the truth? More of us rust out than wear out. And it's because we're just not moving. My wife and I, we live in the forest. And we have no choice. You see, we live totally off-grid. We have no running water. We have no electricity. Sounds strange, doesn't it, in this day and age? But you know what? I have to carry wood in to a wood-burning stove. I've got to move and keep on moving in the forest, and that's how we live. And it is the most fantastic blessing that we have ever had. Fantastic. No neighbors. We've got 186 acres worth of property. Surrounded by crown land. Our neighbors are coyotes and moose and things like this. They don't throw wild parties or anything like that. It's a calm environment, and you can get out and walk in the fresh air. And as you breathe in the smell of the trees has properties in it that can actually help clear your lungs. Isn't that beautiful? Now, you know from last night's lecture, I'm a Christian. And when I look at the trees, how beautiful they look, how beautiful they smell, and how they just make the environment so rich with birds landing in them, raccoons and squirrels climbing up in them. and I see that it not only looks good and smells good, but it's very healthy for my body, I see a design from a creator that cares about the creatures he's made. And so I just say in my heart, thank you, Lord, for providing us with such wonderful things. Now, as a person engages in regular, now the operative word here and the word focused on is regular aerobic exercise, the heart, lungs, and muscles all become more efficient at using oxygen. The heart pumps more blood with each stroke, the lung capacity of each inhalation increases, and the muscle fibers extract more oxygen from the blood. Does this make sense to you? It's a 1-2 situation where your heart becomes stronger. Now, for every glucose molecule, remember we looked at glucose last night coming into the system? Remember what you get from the carrot or what you got from the donut, all the glucose? Well, look at this. This is really interesting. I'm going to show you how to initiate speed healing. For every glucose molecule converted into usable energy, with adequate oxygen present, 32 molecules of ATP are produced. And you can write that down. 32 molecules of ATP are produced with adequate oxygen present. Now, how can you get adequate oxygen in? Deep breathing. Exercising causes you to do what? Breathe deeper. And so if you're breathing deeper and getting more oxygen in, you are increasing energy levels to the body. Now here's something interesting. Here's the opposite. For every glucose molecule converted without adequate oxygen present, 2 molecules of ATP are produced. That's 16 times the difference. Isn't that something? So if you're just sitting around and you're breathing and you're saying, oh, I'm so tired, I can't exercise. Do you see what you need to do? You need to say, even though I'm feeling tired, I better go for a walk, a nice brisk walk. And when you come back from the walk, I guarantee you, you will feel exhilarated. You'll feel energized more. And you'll want to do something. But if you just stay sitting down and say, I feel too tired to go for a walk, you'll get worse and worse and worse till finally you're saying, oh, it's kind of hard to make it up from the chair to get to the table to have a meal. And that's how you'll end up. If you don't move it, you'll lose it. Now, only 2% of our national workforce actually gets enough physical labor on the job. Have you ever heard people say, well, I do lots of walking on the job? How many have heard that? Maybe nurses or people like that walking around. There's only a few kinds of jobs which provide the workers with enough exercise on the job. And one of those is an aerobics instructor. They'd get enough exercise on the job. Come on, you guys, take it up, take it up. Probably athletic coaches and things like that may get enough exercise. People who teach dancing and things like that get enough exercise, things like that. But do you know what? As a rule, we're choosing more and more brain jobs and less physical jobs as a society. And this is causing us to lose our ability to have a healthy body. Now, there's a doctor. His name is Dr. Phil Collins, and the last I heard of him, he was in North Carolina, and he is a cardiac rehabilitationist. And what he does was he takes people in and checks their heart to see how strong it is and puts them on the treadmill test. Well, this patient of his had very good results, and this patient would always go home to her husband and say, you need to go and have a cardiac stress test done, and get your heart checked out, because I don't think you get enough exercise. He was a bricklayer. He says, you got to be kidding. I get lots of exercise. I'm lifting bricks all day and up and down ladders. And she says, you should go check it anyway. He says, well, I'll go check it and I'll prove you wrong. So he went and saw Dr. Phil Collins, and he got on the treadmill, and guess how long he lasted before he was totally out of breath? Less than a minute. Less than 1 minute. And here was a man who had lots of muscles, but his cardiovascular system was not being exercised. The muscles were, but not the cardiovascular. And so then he realized, I'm in trouble. So he started exercising, getting his cardio working, and he ended up really healthy as a result. Now, It also, the fact that we're choosing more brain work is dangerous. You should, if you're a person who does a lot of brain work, you shouldn't eat a lot of heavy protein foods. You should eat more of the fruit kind of foods and good concentrated starch type of foods, because these will go better with brain work. But when you're finished your work, you should always take pauses throughout the day. Stand up, go outside, get some fresh air, breathe heavy, cause the blood to flow from the brain to the extremities. You need exercise more than a person who doesn't use their brain. Did you know that? You're causing blood to go to the brain on a continual basis, and this can cause stress on the thyroid as well as the brain. So many people are just doing the wrong things. The person who is physically inactive has chosen the same level of increased risk of heart disease as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. How important is movement? Extremely. Now, the purpose of exercise is fourfold. First of all, to increase vascular output. That means from the heart to all the parts of the body. Second, to increase the permeability of the cells, getting more nutrients into the cells, taking more garbage and daily toxins out of the cells. Third, to stimulate the lymphatic flow. Does anyone know about the lymphatic system? Without that, you can't have health. You don't have a good immune system. And to tone muscles and tissues. Tone them well. Now, physical exercise, here's a very good definition. Planned, structured, and a key word is repetitive bodily movement produced by skeletal muscles that requires energy expenditure. Sounds like a mouthful, but it's a really good description of what physical exercise is. The best time for exercising, many people ask, is upon rising, before any food is introduced into the body. Have some nice water and do some exercises. Exercise does not have to be the same every day. If you feel like walking today, swimming tomorrow, and the weather only allows you to go jump on the mini trampoline the next day, this is fine. The key thing is not that you do walking or bike riding. The key thing is that you get your heart rate going. Now, if you find walking doesn't do it for you, here's what you need to do. If you find you can't get your heart rate up from walking, put a backpack on and put a 20-pound weight in the backpack. And then go walking and see what it feels like. Your heart rate will increase. You'll start to sweat. And by the way, sweating is a very necessary part of a good exercise program. If you're going walking, you should dress very warm, doubly warm, to make sure you sweat, because this will help your lymphatic system to work more effectively. Now, mini trampoline. Exercise for 15 to 20 minutes twice daily if you're on the mini trampoline. Use a mixture of jogging, jumping, twisting at the waist while jogging, and doing jumping jacks, etc. And you notice the girl in this picture? She looks like she's having a really good time. Be happy when you exercise. Walking. Walk at least 1 mile daily. Walk briskly, swinging your arms, because this will pull the blood to the extremities. And if you find your hands are starting to swell a little bit, put them above your head and just go walking like this, and the blood will come right back down again, and then walk again. Somebody might think you're just praising the Lord as you're walking along, just having a good time. Swimming. Swim fairly vigorously for at least 20 minutes daily. Jogging is generally not recommended, as most people do not know how to jog, and they hurt themselves, especially the knee joint and the low back. Now, I've noticed one thing, and that is any animals that run in nature seem to have elbows where we have knees, so that when the weight comes down, it's not forcing the joint. Instead, it's just relaxing, bending the joint. So if you're going to be doing jogging, be very careful with your jogging. Run so that you don't put a lot of stress on your knees and your hips. Because if you multiply the speed of the body while jogging, that's about 5 miles per hour, by the weight of the body, if you weigh 150 pounds, you've got the equivalent of 750 pounds coming down on your lower back each time you take a step. Picture that. That is a lot of weight to come down on your lower back. That's a lot of weight. So be very careful. Have very good running shoes. Don't spare any expense when it comes to that, because it will save you damage, tissue damage, bone damage, so on and so forth. The chief, if not the only reason why many become invalids is because the blood does not circulate freely. And the changes in the vital fluid which are necessary to life and health do not take place. Counsels on Health, page 173. Now this was written in the late 1800s. Isn't that interesting? That's a person who must have known all about how blood needs to flow through the body. So unless you've got the blood flowing, your body is not going to have the vital exchange of fluids from cellular structures back into the bloodstream through the kidneys to evacuate toxins, to the lungs to bring in oxygen, which, by the way, oxygen alkalizes the body nicely. The more oxygen you breathe in, the more alkaline you can become. More alkaline. So the exercise is so important in bringing the body to a place where the blood can flow freely to every single tissue. And you know, as you look at things, blood flowing freely, perfect health is dependent upon perfect circulation. Can you see why? Those red blood cells carry nutrients, and if they don't get to all the tissues, then all the tissues don't get the nutrients they need. Okay, now here's an investment strategy. Anybody like a wise investment? Okay, well, ready for this one. For every minute you exercise, you live 2 minutes longer. Does that sound like a good investment? A study done in Alameda, California showed that exercise was the best predictor of longevity. I believe it was about a 50-year study. People who exercised on a regular basis lived longer and had more disease-free lives. And we can see why. Okay. Now, will exercise and good nutrition help lower my cholesterol? We're going to answer that question when we come back. We'll take a short pause. All right, will exercise and good nutrition help lower my cholesterol? As your dietary patterns change to a lower fat diet, your arteries will actually release cholesterol from the plaque in the artery wall and elevate the serum cholesterol above 160 milligrams percent for sometimes as long as several years before the plaque is cleaned out. If your dietary changes don't produce immediate low cholesterol levels, do not be concerned, because the dietary changes over a period of time are doing their job in reversing this disease. Now, we had a registered nurse come to us. She lived in Washington, Walla Walla, Washington, but she was down in California near Palm Springs vacationing. And she heard about the center we had up in Canada, and she said, I want to come up there because my cholesterol levels are way too high. And she heard of the work done at the center. So she came up and she followed all the recommendations, went through a 10-day cleanse, and she went back home so hopeful that her cholesterol levels were going to be lower. When she went to her doctor, had her cholesterol levels checked, they were higher than they ever were before. So she phoned us and she said, my cholesterol levels are higher than they ever have been. I said, good. She said, good? I said, yes. In fact, that's very good. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, when you start doing all the right things. Now, I talked with her and said, what are you doing? Are you following all the recommendations? She said, to the T. I'm following these recommendations. I said, well, this is very good, because what your body's doing is it's dumping excess cholesterol, taking it out of the plaque in the arteries, and it's putting it in the bloodstream so it can get rid of it. Don't worry about it. Your body will take care of it over time. She said, well, I believe you. I'll keep doing what I'm doing then. Is that what I need to do? I said, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. Have faith. So you know what? It was almost 3 months later, she phoned back. And she really wanted to get her cholesterol levels low. And so she phoned back and she said, guess what? I said, what? She said, I went and I had my cholesterol level checked. And she said, you were right. It's now lower than it's ever been. She was at first a little bit hesitant, and I can understand that. You know, what is going on? But I'll tell you what, your body is smarter than you know. and smarter than you can know, because none of us can make one. We can fix a computer, we can fix a TV camera, we can fix anything we've made. But when it comes to fixing the human body, the greatest thing we can do is get out of the way and do nothing intelligently, realizing this body has the capability of healing itself. What we need to do is do the things we know are conducive to good health and watch the body work. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. And I've seen it over 9 years now of helping people. We've seen every disease, virtually every disease, reverse, just doing nothing more than following God's 8 natural doctors. Very simple. So the next time somebody says to you, have you got a doctor? You say, I've got 8 of them. I've got 8 doctors. Oh, really? Wow. You must be a sick person. Say, no, I'm a really healthy person because I've got 8 doctors. Okay. Can heart disease be reversed? Dr. Dean Ornish, assistant clinical professor of medicine at the University of California in San Francisco, followed patients suffering from heart disease who had opted not to have the bypass surgery for 1 year. They ate no meat, poultry, fish, egg yolks, nuts, caffeine, or dairy products except yogurt. Their diet consisted of fruits, vegetables, pasta, grains, and beans. They reached a total fat consumption of about 10%. They took no cholesterol-lowering medicine and exercised on a routine basis. High-technology quantitative angiography to measure the amount of blood vessel blockage before and after the 1 year experiment was used on each patient. Of the 12 patients treated, 10 had significant and measurable widening of the arteries. These results proved that coronary artery disease is reversible by diet and exercise alone. Isn't this wonderful to know about? You see, so it's not just a matter of, oh, go out and exercise. I believe when you know why you're exercising and what the exercise is producing, you'll be more encouraged to exercise. Do you believe me? Absolutely. It works in every case, and it doesn't matter how old you may be. From 1 year old to being chronologically gifted, you must go out and exercise, no matter what your age. Becoming more physically fit by engaging in moderate activity, such as brisk walking, several times a week for 30 to 45 minutes can lower systolic blood pressure by about 10 milligrams of mercury. So your blood pressure is lowered by exercise. Okay, cancer. Now, cancer cells die in an oxygen-rich environment. So what does exercise do? It increases the amount of oxygen coming into the system. People who come to us with cancer, one of the things I recommend highly to them is a program of exercise. Usually they're told, be very still, don't do anything. I say, get the blood flowing. Let's exercise. Get the body doing what you haven't been doing. And then you'll see the results you've never had. Okay. Other benefits of exercise. It maintains or increases bone mineral density. Now, how many of you have heard of a disease called osteoporosis? Right? Well, I want to use an illustration that will try and show us how we need to change our thinking. Osteoporosis is when minerals are leaving the bones, especially calcium. Am I right? And they want to put you on a calcium supplement, right? Now let's just take a look at something. If I came to you and I had a slow leak in my tire, or you came to me and had a slow leak in your tire, and I said to you, and you said, can you fix this? I said, yeah, put more air in. What would you think of me? What should I do to fix the tire? I should find out where the leak is and then plug the leak, and then when I put air in the tire, it won't leak out. Tell me now, think with me. If the minerals are supposed to be in the bones and they're leaving the bones, will I cure it by putting more minerals in? You're right, I won't. What have I got to do? I have to find the leak. What's going on? How come the minerals are leaving the bones? It's simply like this. There's too much animal protein coming into the system. Too much animal protein coming in, and it's putrefying in the intestines, and the body is pulling minerals from the bones to neutralize the toxins produced from these animal products. And why would I say that? Simply because in 9 years of experience working with people and watching osteoporosis reverse, I know when I get people off the animal products and onto a plant-based diet, the minerals stop coming out of the bones. Isn't that interesting? So that's the leak. That's what we find the leak, and plug the leak, and then when you put in the minerals, they won't disappear. Do these things make sense to you? So next time when you see a person with osteoporosis, say, don't put more air in the tire. Plug the leak. Plug the leak. Okay, exercise helps prevent or control diabetes. It helps control obesity, decreases the risk of certain cancers, helps control anxiety, treats depression, improves stress coping mechanism, improves intermittent claudication. That just means pain in the legs. It helps control osteoarthritis, improves the symptoms of Alzheimer's, and improves fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is just pain in the muscles. There is no drug in current or prospective use that holds as much promise for sustained health as a lifetime program of physical fitness. Now look where that statement was taken from the American Medical Journal. Isn't that wonderful? The medical professionals are now admitting exercise is fantastic for you. So take heart. Now, Jeannie has some things to share with you to help you get through exercise safely.
Okay, so we're going to look at another area that is very important with exercise and our health. Exercise and weight control. We have a real issue with weight control in our society right now. Statistics show us that 2 out of 3 adult Americans are overweight, and 1 out of 3 adult Americans are obese. That is incredible. That is staggering. That is the worst that it has ever been in our history. The highest rates of obesity that we've ever had. 15% of our youth, that's ages 6 to 19, are overweight, and another 15% are at risk for being overweight. That has skyrocketed within the last 10 to 15 years. Obesity has skyrocketed. Now, exercise is only one area. It is a very critical area that our country has really fallen behind in. There are other areas that are associated with obesity, but we're going to look specifically at the relationship of exercise to weight control tonight. Okay, there was a study that was conducted by T. Colin Campbell. You may have heard of this study. It's called the China Study. This is recognized as the most comprehensive study of nutrition that has ever been conducted. And he co-authored that with his son, who is shown there in the picture. And in his research, he found some very interesting things in relation to exercise and weight control. And I just want to share that with you. This is quoting from his book, page 142. He says, a whole foods plant-based diet operates on calorie balance to keep weight under control in 2 ways. First, it discharges calories as body heat instead of storing them as body fat. Now, that kind of relates to an earlier lecture where we talked about the importance of choosing good nutrition. And specifically, we were encouraging you to choose your nutrition plant-based and avoid animal-based products. And if you're choosing a plant-based diet, you are going to find that calories will discharge as body heat instead of storing as body fat. So that's the very first area that a plant-based diet can help to control your weight. And of course, it doesn't take many calories to make a big difference over the course of a year. But the second part is what relates to exercise. A plant-based diet encourages more physical activity. Isn't that interesting? And we've actually seen that with individuals who have come into our office. As they switch onto a more natural foods diet, they actually become more active. They feel more energetic. Their energy levels increase. And we find that really exciting. As your body weight goes down, it becomes easier to be physically active. And diet and exercise, he has shown in his book there, work together to decrease body weight and improve overall health. So very, very important that not only we're choosing good nutrition to put into our body, but also that we are exercising, and that will help to control body weight. In fact, let me share another quote with you from his book. How much exercise is needed to keep the pounds off? A rough estimate derived from a good review suggested that exercising a mere 15 to 45 minutes per day, that's not much, 15 to 45 minutes per day, every day, will maintain a body weight that is 11 to 18 pounds lighter than it would otherwise be. Isn't that something? Just exercising a mere 15 to 45 minutes a day is going to help your weight to be 11 to 18 pounds lighter than it otherwise would have been had you not been doing that. And I'm sure all of us could squeeze in 15 to 45 minutes somewhere in there every day. That's not much. Go for a good brisk walk. Take a nice little swim if you have the opportunity, if you have a facility near you. Do something, get active, and just that little bit of time is going to turn into a big difference in your weight. Now, examples of moderate exercise would be this. To expend 150 calories, if you were to play volleyball, it would take you 45 minutes to expend 150 calories. Brisk walking, it takes about 30 minutes. Raking leaves or active gardening takes roughly about 30 minutes. Swimming laps takes only about 20 minutes to expend 150 calories. Playing basketball takes about 15 to 20 minutes, going to depend on how active you are out there on the court. And running about 1.5 miles an hour, you would expend 150 calories in about 15 minutes. So there's some examples of moderate exercise and what it would take to expend roughly 150 calories. Now I want to share with you how you can exercise safely, because it's one thing to get all excited and say, boy, you know, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make some changes. I'm going to start on an exercise program. For those of you that are not on an exercise program, we do like to recommend that you do go first and have a checkup with your medical doctor and make sure that there is not some underlying condition that would interfere with you starting an exercise program. It's always wise to check on that first. But then you want to make sure that you're going to exercise in a way that is safe and also effective. And so what I'd like to share with you is something called the Carvonen formula. You can jot this down. It's a very simple formula, and it's one that physiotherapists use in their training to help individuals to train in a safe zone. And this is the formula. The first thing you want to do is determine your resting heart rate. An easy way to do that is for the next 3 mornings, or for 3 mornings in a row, just take your pulse when you wake up. It's very simple. You can just check that right on your wrist. Take your pulse when you wake up in the morning, jot that number down for 3 mornings in a row, divide it by 3, and that will give you an average, and that will be what you'll write down as your resting heart rate. The second thing you're going to do is calculate your intensity level. Now, if you've not been on an exercise program, or you've just been on kind of an on and off exercise program, it's best to start as a beginner. Just start in a safe zone for yourself. So beginner fitness level, you're going to be exercising at 50 to 60%. Or if you've been on a good exercise program for a period of time already, you might want to go into the average fitness level. High fitness level would be only for those people who have been on a very intense, active program for a period of time already. So find out which level you would be at, and we'll run through this formula here in a moment. I'm just going to give you the formula, and then I'm going to show you how this formula actually works. It's very simple. Might look complicated here, but it's actually very simple. So it's 220 minus your age. 220 minus your age. And from that number, then, you're going to subtract your resting heart rate. And once you get that number, you're going to multiply that by your intensity level. And I'm going to run through this here shortly just to give you an example of how it works. And once you get that number, you're going to add back on your resting heart rate, and this equals what is called your maximum training rate. That is where you would not take your heart rate past that when you exercise. Okay? So we're going to run through this now, and it's going to be a very simple little illustration here. So we're going to use for our illustration a resting heart rate of 72. So our fictitious person here has a resting heart rate of 72, and they've not been on an exercise program, but they're real excited to get going. They're making a New Year's resolution to get off the couch and get out the door, and so they're going to start at a beginner fitness level. So they're going to be starting at about 50%. We're going to give them the age of 40, because your age is going to factor in there, so we're going to give them the age of 40. And this is what their formula would look like. 220 minus their age of 40 would give 180. 180, from that we're subtracting the resting heart rate, which was 72, and that gives us a total of 108. 108 we're going to multiply by their intensity level. They're a beginner, so we're multiplying that by 50%, which came to 54. And now we're going to add back on the resting heart rate of 72, and that gives us a maximum training rate of 126. Do you see how that works? It's actually very simple. So then when you would go out on your exercise program, if you're riding a stationary bike, or if you're riding a bike out on the road, or you're going for a nice brisk walk, whatever it is you're doing, you can just periodically check your pulse. You can buy one of these fancy little watches from Sears or other exercise stores, and it will actually keep a running pulse for you. And you just want to check and make sure that you're getting your heart rate up there. Oftentimes we find when people exercise, they actually are not exercising enough to work their heart. Most people don't. Oftentimes we would send individuals from our cleanse center, we would send them out for walks, and we'd see them just going for kind of a stroll down the street. That's not going to exercise your heart. You need to get that heart working, but you want to be careful to not be overworking it either. So what we want to do is use this formula, and every couple of months what you want to do is you want to check again, because your formula will change. As your heart rate strengthens, your heart becomes stronger, your pulse is going to come down a little bit, and your formula is just going to change slightly. So every couple of months, just check that again, make your adjustments, and that will keep your body working at a good rate that will strengthen your heart and make sure that your exercise is going to pay you the dividends that you want. Now, Rudy has some things he's going to share with you. He's going to come up here now. Some things that are very important for having good, healthy blood.
As I mentioned earlier, it's no good exercising if you don't have really good blood. So now I'm going to give you a recipe that will help you to have really good blood. According to Dr. Joel Fuhrman, the most nutrient-dense food on the planet is green vegetables. Green vegetables. And as you look at the green pepper and you look at zucchini and the cucumber, those are vegetables. They're kind of almost like a neutral because they have seeds inside them. A lot of other root vegetables don't. But this is the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, green vegetables. You might want to take note of that. As I looked at the contents of the greens are absolutely incredible. In a study that was reported by Dr. Bernard Jensen, they took rats in a laboratory and they drained their blood out and replaced it with chlorophyll. Do you know what chlorophyll is? Well, chlorophyll is what makes the greens green, you see? So they replaced the blood with chlorophyll. Guess what happened to the rats? They lived. Isn't that amazing? So it is very important that we have chlorophyll. Chlorophyll feeds the good bacteria in your intestines. And the bad bacteria absolutely hate chlorophyll. So it's a good thing. They hate it, the good likes it. You want to give your body a lot of it. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. 2 cups of pineapple juice, 2 to 3 large handfuls of spinach, a small bunch of parsley, and 1 to 2 tablespoons of flaxseed oil. You put that all in a blender, and you blend it so it's very, very smooth. Now you can add things in there like guava juice, mango juice, if you want to get it, and put it in there for a nice taste. And it's not going to interfere with the greens at all, and the greens won't interfere with the fruit juices either. And you may discover something really interesting. Have this drink before you have your breakfast. Have this drink before you have your lunch. A 16-ounce glass is preferable, but if you want to start with an 8-ounce glass, it's better to start with small than not at all. Okay, so you can start that way. This drink does a phenomenal job at feeding the body, flooding it with nutrients. And as a result, if you have that drink first, when you go to have your other foods, which you should have after that, whatever you're going to have for breakfast, whatever you normally have it. Whatever you normally have for lunch, have it. If you're having your green smoothie at supper time, whatever you have for supper normally, have it after you have your green smoothie. And you'll discover that your stomach doesn't have as much room in it as it used to if you hadn't had the green smoothie, so you won't be eating as much of that which is not so good for you. Does this make sense? Yes? It works very well. Very well. And soon you start saying things like, I think I'd like to have a larger, maybe a 20-ounce green smoothie, and that'll be my supper. Great. That'll do you even better. The reason why your body will feel full is because there's a lot of nutrients in there. Now today, you could ask Wenzel back there on the heading up this operation. You can say, Wenzel, are green smoothies very tasty? He's nodding back there. Oh yeah, thumb up. They're very good. Jeannie and I made up green smoothie for Wenzel and his wife Dagmar, and they're very, very good and good for you. You see, if something doesn't taste good, are you going to eat it? You're not going to eat it. So the food has to taste good, or otherwise you're not interested. So we try and mix things together to come up with a good combination for you. So you'll enjoy having your foods, you'll look forward to having your foods. And a key thing I want to tell you is, don't always have the same greens in your green smoothie. Every couple of weeks, change, alternate. Say, for the next 2 weeks after I finish with the spinach and the parsley, I'm going to have romaine lettuce and kale, and use that for a couple of weeks. And then maybe you want to switch to spinach and kale. Great. Kale is one of the richest green foods on this planet. Kale is fantastic. So you can do things like that. Shift them around. Find other nice leafy greens that you want to put in, and use a couple of different ones every couple of weeks. And that way your body won't become tired of the same taste. It'll have a little different taste. Instead of using guava, maybe you want to use prune nectar or something like that, and just add it together with it, okay? And it'll make a good green drink for you. Now, so many people say, well, if I'm on this vegetarian diet, where do I get my protein from? I'm doing all this exercise, but how am I going to build muscle? Well, it's very simple. We're told that we need 23 amino acids in the human body in order to make all the muscles and bones and fibers and tissues that the human body has need of. And this is true. Well, then, can you only get the proteins from animals? Well, my question is, again, where did the animals get it from? From plants. I'm here to tell you that if you ate nothing but avocados, cabbage, and carrots, you would receive all 23 amino acids in those 3 foods alone. Isn't that interesting? So you don't need to go to the animal kingdom to get your protein. All the amino acids you need can be found in fruit and vegetables. And if you don't get all the amino acids your body needs in one day, then having a variety of foods will provide you with the amino acids you need, say, the next day. In your liver, there's an amino acid pool. And in this pool, there's all the amino acids you need. And so the liver sends out whatever amino acids your body needs, not all at the same time, but as it needs them. And as you eat the different varieties of foods, these amino acids become stored in your liver. So here's the key. Eat a rainbow of foods every week. A rainbow. Look at all the different colors and make sure you're getting a rainbow of foods. And then you'll know you're getting all your amino acids. Is that easy? That is so easy. In fact, I would challenge any nutritionist to make me up a diet that is deficient in protein from just plant sources. So, what the Bible says? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and ye are not your own? For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Did you know that God gave us exercise? The Bible tells us God gave us exercise. Genesis chapter 3, verse 19, God said to Adam, after sin, he said, Adam, in the sweat of your face shall you eat your bread. Adam had to work for his food real hard now, so he was going to exercise. Isn't that interesting? So the exercise, the sweating, is going to be part of making this temple of God a very healthy, vibrant, living temple. And I'd like to leave you with a quote. Remember, an increase in exercise provides a decrease in exercise. Okay? Just write that down and take it with you, because it really is true. We hope that you've all had a blessing this evening. Take it with you and be the blessing that you need to be to family, friends, loved ones. Thank you.